Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Coastal Oak Ranch. Today we're going to be installing a power inlet box and an interlock device on our home panel so we can power our whole home off our generator. If that sounds like something you want to learn how to do, stick around. We'll see you on the ranch. Alright, so first things first, we're going to get everything laid out that we need. We're going to go over some of the parts that we're going to need to do this install. So these are going to be our essentials right here. So we are installing a 50 amp inlet box. You can go with a 30 if you're only going to be running a 30 amp cord in. However, I want the ability to link up two generators and run 50 amps, so I could actually run the ACs off of that in the future if I want to do that. So for now I'm just going to install the 50 amp box and still run 30 amps to it, and later in the future if I want to get two generators and link them together, I can do that. So first thing you're going to need is an inlet box for whatever power rating you need. Like I said, this is a 50 amp here. So this is going to be where we plug in the actual generator into the wall that's going to feed our panel. Second thing you're going to need is whatever amperage you're planning to run to that panel. You're going to need a breaker in that amperage in 240, so it's going to have to be one of these ones with the linked deals there. So I have a 50 amp breaker. One thing to mention, when you are getting breakers, make sure you're getting the proper breakers for your panel. Whatever brand your panel is the brand of breaker you should be putting in there. We have a Murray panel and I'm putting in Siemens breakers. They're the only two that I know of that are interchangeable. And I don't even know if that's to code, but I know they're basic knowledge in the electricians community is that they're exactly the same. So I couldn't find the Murray breakers at Home Depot, so I'm using the Siemens. So I have a 50 amp double here. I'm also going to be using these little clamps here in the back of the box and in the bottom of the panel box to hold my cabling that I'm going to run up to the panel. This is the cable I'm going to use for 50 amp. I'm using a 6'3" wire. Make sure you check and see what wire you need to run based on what amperage you're going to be running to that panel. So there's charts online if you look up you know, wire gauge for whatever amperage. There's a chart that you can look at that'll tell you exactly what wire you're going to need to run that amperage. So for 50 amps here in California, I'm going to be running 6'3" stranded. That should ROMEX, that should do the trick for us. The last thing that we're going to need is an interlock device. So this is going to be different for every panel. There's a label inside the panel. A lot of times if it's a newer panel, that'll show you which interlock device you have to buy. And the purpose of this is, once I put this in the panel, it'll only allow either the 50 amp breaker to be turned on or my 200 main breaker to be turned on. So they can't both be turned on at the same time. And the reason that's important is if I were just to put this breaker in and we had a power outage and I flipped this breaker on and didn't flip the main breaker off and powered it up with my generator, I'd be back feeding the lines coming into the house and the neighborhood, and if there was a line worker working up there, he could get injured. So we want to make sure that we install an interlock device so we don't screw that up and hurt someone else. So tools wise, what we're going to need, I'm going to need some screwdrivers. I have these special ones that are non-conductive, so if you're working with electrical, it might be a good idea to pick some of these up. I also have a cable cutters that we're going to use, a pair of wire strippers. We're going to be using the multimeter just to make sure we have power once we install it and power's off while we're installing it. And I also have a drill and some drill bits, hole saws. The ones I got are 7/8, 1 1/8, and 1 3/8. And the reason I got that is the knockouts on this box. I got this box off Amazon. the knockouts aren't really knockouts. They're just kind of printed into the steel. So I'm gonna have to drill the holes for this. So that might not be necessary for you if you find a box that you can get the knockouts out of. We're also gonna need some silicone to seal the back of the box. Couple extras that I have here. This is a 30 amp to a 50 amp conversion, so that way I can plug my 30 amp generator straight into this for now. So that's that. And then I also have 2 tandem 15 amp breakers because my panel's full right now. I'm going to take 2 of my single 15 amps and or 4 of my single 50 amps and turn them into 2 tandem 15 amps so I can make room for my 50 amp breaker on my panel. So same thing here, just make sure you got the right brand, and we'll go ahead and go over there, figure out where we're going to put our box and get started. So if we look at the inside of the door here on this chart, you'll see this is where it's going to show an accessories list, and it's going to show us what we need for that interlock kit. So our interlock kit is ECSBPK02, so that part number is what we ordered for our interlock kit. So like I said, that may be different on your panel, but if you have a chart in here, you might be able to find the part number you need. Alright, so here we are over the panel. We got our box with us. We're going to try and figure out a good mounting position. So our cables are going to have to come up through the bottom of this box, which is actually recessed in the wall here. So we're going to be running through the wall up along this right side here. So I want to find a spot for this box that's going to make it easy for me to make that run. I'm thinking right below the box here is probably going to be a good spot. So if we mount this right about here, seal it all up, run our wires back up into there, that should be a good spot for us to be able to plug our generator in. So we'll go ahead and drill a hole lining up with our knockout in the back, and then we'll start running some wire. Alright, so we got our knockout cut out of here. I got my little cable clamp in there, and now I'm going to mark the center of this, and we're going to drill it with a 2-inch hole saw. Alright, so now we just got to go through the plywood there, and we should be where we need to be. Alright, we went and got the big drill because that thing smoked this, the paneling smoked the teeth on this bit. So hopefully I can get through that plywood, and we'll keep going. Alright, I don't know if you can see in there, but this hole is about 4 inches deep now, and I hit right on a stud or something right there. So I can't go up. So I'm going to grab another bit for Rain Electrical and try and drill up towards the box and see if I can break into some open space under here. I figured there was open space because I had wires running out the bottom of the box right there, but looks like I may have been wrong. So we're gonna mess with this and see if we can figure something out. So at this point I'm gonna go ahead and kill my main power too, which is gonna be this 200 amp breaker here. So I'm gonna go ahead and kill power. That'll kill power to the whole house, all the circuits. We'll double check that. And I'm just gonna go from my ground to the breakers here. Let's make sure we're dead. We got 0 volts, 0 volts, so we are good to go. everything is dead right now. So we'll get that other bit and see if we can drill up from the bottom. All right, so we're pretty deep in there and I still can't get in, so I'm gonna try and use this flex bit. It's a 3/4 inch, and see if I can run up towards the box and get through whatever's in our way there. So we'll see if it works. Alright, I should be able to get access to that box now. Looks like I was about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch too low to break into that channel there, but we got it open now, and we'll get it going. Alright, so we finally got through that thing. Basically what I ended up doing is taking a 2-inch hole saw and coming up at an angle. That way we could feed the wire up, since I was just about this much short from breaking into the free space. So I have a clear path all the way up to the box now. I went ahead and knocked this knockout out. I don't know how easy it is to see in there, but I went ahead and knocked this knockout out, which was not easy either. And the idea is I'm gonna go ahead and attach our clamp onto our cable. Then as I pull it through, it's gonna seat on the bottom of that, and I can get my ring on. That way we can get it wired up that way, and everything's all sealed up the way it should be. So I left enough room for this to travel through underneath. So we'll get this on our cable, try and fish our cable up through there, and we should be good. So I'm gonna leave plenty of extra slack on this thing. Go through here. Let's see, I'm gonna need to be right about there, I think. Should give us plenty. So let's go ahead and get this guy tightened down on here. Go. Okay, so we got that tightened down. We're gonna go ahead and try and run it up through our hole now. Alright, here it comes. Through there. And we'll probably get some of these back out of my way here. Alright, got it through there. We're gonna grab our ring to start it so we don't lose it. Okay, we are in there. So, not sure how easy this is going to be to see, but we got our ring on there. We pulled that through, we got it started. So we're going to go ahead and knock that guy tight, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next step. All right, so we got our cable ran into our box through our hole down here below. So next step, what we're going to do is we're going to make some space for our 50 amp breaker. So you can see I have these 15s right here. I'm going to take these 4, condense them down into 2 tandems so I can put my 50 right next to my main breaker. Something to mention also, just because we have our main breaker off does not mean all the wires in here are safe to touch. All these cables coming into these main breakers are still going to be hot. So we have to be really careful that we don't hit anything on there while we're working and risk getting electrocuted. So be careful, those are still hot. The only thing that's not hot are going to be all these smaller wires coming off of the individual breakers. So let's go ahead and get started. So these are really easy to remove. All you have to do is lift from the left hand side and they come right out. So at that point, you can go ahead and remove your hot wire. There you go. So then you can see, instead of having just one slot like this guy has, we're going to have 2. So we'll be able to run 2 off of the same amount of space there. Once we have our 2 leads hooked up, just flip these to off. Then our slot that we made available. Back down on the bus. That's it. So we're going to do that with the next 2 and replace where this one is, and we should be good to go. Okay, just like that, we can pop these 2 out. Careful of our hots there. And we have room for our 50 amp breaker now. Alright, so for our interlock device, all this guy does is just clip over the edge of the breaker, so when this one is off, the other one can be on. When this one is on, the other one can't be on. So all it does is just go over the edge like this. And each interlock device is going to come with its own breaker, so basically that's going to go just like that, pop in there, and it's going to cover all of that to make sure that we don't accidentally screw anything else into this breaker or anything, and it lets us know that's an interlock. Also, there's a couple decals we'll put on here that show that this is a utility and this is our standby power, so we'll go ahead and add those too. Alright, now we're ready to get our box actually installed on the wall here where we made our hole finally. So we're going to get this thing all mounted up and run the wires through there, and then we'll make some connections. And then what I'm going to do for this silicone is I'm going to run a bead around the back real thick. That way when I push the box up against it and go to screw it into the wall, it's going to make a tight seal right there. So we'll go ahead and pull this guy back. There we go. We have a nice tight seal across the back there. Once we squeeze our panel in there, we'll be good to go. Alright, so we're ready to wire up our outlet. This cable is really stiff, so I'm going to cut it pretty short to try and be able to fit it inside this box. It's not going to want to coil up very good, so I'll leave me a little bit of length at the beginning here, just so I can strip it and make sure I have enough, but it is pretty stiff stuff, so we'll go ahead and cut it. We're going to strip this back. I'll show you how to do that with this thick ROMEX. just going to want to take your knife or a razor blade if you have one, and you're going to run it right up the edge of the sheathing, sharp side out, as far back as you need to go. Go. Peel this guy back a little. Then we're just going to cut this off back here. That way we don't break any of the coating on the wires there by trying to slice around and peel it off that way. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to mount our cables in here. Ground wire is going to go to the box here. There we go. And then we're going to have to strip these guys. So we'll see what the best method's going to be for that. They're pretty thick. I think what we're going to do is do this here. See if we can strip them just like that. Now we're trying to only get the plastic around the wire. We don't want to actually cut the wires. So I'm just making a little line. I'm not even going all the way through. I'm using it as a grip to peel it off there. Here. There we go. Alright, so all our wires are stripped there. We got our ground wire in place. And we'll get our outlet and hook that guy up. Alright, so we're ready to finish up our last part of the install. We're going to go ahead and strip this wire back. I'm going to leave this one long and cut the individual legs so we can mate up the ground and the neutral up on the ground bar over here. So I'm going to leave those a little bit longer. The reds and the blacks I'm going to cut to length so we can hook them up to that breaker. So we'll get going. Guys unraveled here. Alright, so our ground, we're going to run right down in here. So I'm probably only going to need about that much on the ground there. Actually, you know what? I may even go a little less. Bring it in right on that guy. Let's cut it right there. Okay, so there's our ground. Our red and our black are both going to come up and go right to this breaker here. I'm going to leave them a little long like that. So those guys right there. Those are done. And then our neutral is going to come up here to our neutral bus. So this one we're going to leave almost where it's at right now. We're just going to take a little snip off the end here. Alright, let's get this ground installed here first while we have the room. So I got an open spot right down here on the bus. And we still want to be really careful because we're still hot right here, so. Now we're going to do our neutral here. So let me strip the tip of this off. Now we're ready for our red and our black on our breaker there. So I'm going to leave a little loop in there just in case I need to ever move this breaker. If I ever need to move this breaker, then I'll have a little slack to play with. So I'm just going to leave them looped like this a little bit. We're going to strip the tips off of these and get them in the breaker and then get that breaker installed. We'll get our breaker here now. And it doesn't matter which the red or the black goes to, they're both hots. All right, we're set. We're in the off position right now. I'm gonna go ahead. At this point, we're ready to install our interlock device. So this guy's just gonna slip over the backside here. Now, some of the other interlock devices that you'll see, you may have to drill the cover panel and they slide on there. This is actually the simplest one I've seen as far as install goes. But like I said, you look up that part number for whatever one's required for your panel and it'll come with instructions on how to do it. So this guy just clips on there like that. Perfect. We're gonna get our breaker in here. Are fully set to go, so that should be on now. If we flip it to utility, it should kill this one. We will double check that in a minute. First thing we're going to do is get our wires up out of the way here. Okay, so that's it. Pretty clean install. We're all set there, box is hooked up. We're going to check for continuity just to make sure that everything's wired up properly, and then we'll see how it goes. All right, so we got our cover back on. You can see now how it looks. So we're in standby mode right now. This is the mode we'd be in if we actually had a generator hooked up to this thing, which we don't right now. So we just have our box here. So we're gonna go ahead and restore power to the house now. We're gonna go ahead and flip our main breaker, confirm that it clicked off our standby, which it did. So we're just gonna go ahead and flip these breakers back on here. Check all our breakers. Everything's on except for our generator breaker, so everything should be good to go. And as soon as we get our generator in, we'll be able to hook it up and have the whole house powered. All right, well that's going to do it for our generator interlock kit install. If you feel like you learned something, please leave a like or comment down below. If you want to stick around and see how the generator works once we get it hooked up to the house, make sure to click that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time on the ranch.